Welcome to the Genius Talk. So, I'm your host Atul Raj, and today I have a very special guest, Vince. So, Vince is a former radio guy who went from spinning prize wheels to hosting a national syndicate show on 225 stations. Now he helps businesses, owners, and content creators master the most overlooked skill in marketing, that is hosting. So, if you want to grow your audience, build your brand, and create content that actually converts, this episode is for you. So, Vince, how are you?
I'm great, man. I'm great. It's early morning for me. I just pounded some coffee. I'm ready to go, man. I'm on fire. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell me like what makes a great host?
Yeah, so a lot of different things, but on one side, it's very specific topics, right? Like when you're presenting to people and you want to talk about a certain thing on your show, you've got to be as narrow as you can possibly get with those topics. On some level, more specific than you think is possible. And what I mean by that, let's start with something that's really broad and then narrow it down, right? Like dating.
Okay.
Okay. So dating is one thing. Great. Let's talk about dating in your 40s. Let's talk about dating in your 40s post divorce. And let's talk about dating in your 40s post divorce with kids. Right? Like now you've gotten so specific that like when you can narrow something down like that and be at that kind of starting point, it might take people an hour to get there. They may never get there in their show if they just start talking about dating. But when you can think about, hey, here's this really specific place that I want to go to, then you get so much deeper in your conversation. And that kind of specificity connects with people because they don't hear it anywhere else. You don't get
Yeah.
those kinds of conversations. It's harder to find. Being very specific in the conversation is one thing. Another thing is just being really good with the time and understanding how much time you have in an episode, how much ground you want to cover, what are the important elements of that topic that you want to hit, and making sure that you're dedicating time to those things. And then on the last side, especially because I work so much with businesses, and so you have something to sell, you want to connect with this audience and ultimately do business with them. And understanding those technical elements that you want to hit. Are you doing the intro to your show properly? When you have a read during the show, when do you schedule that read? Are you doing it every single time, or is it just kind of when you remember it? So thinking about your calls to action and layering those and executing those, I think is the number one thing that people forget about because they get so caught up in the topics and just the conversation. But all of those things together are what make a great host.
Okay, and what if someone is not a great speaker but he recently started podcasting and he want to be a great host?
Yeah, so it's working at it, right? It's like anything else that you want to do and get better at. It's the same as playing an instrument or playing a sport or anything else that you want to do. Cooking, like it's just as long as you're actively thinking about it, analyzing it, and saying, how can I get better? And not beating yourself up too much along the way, right? Understanding that it is a process and you're going to work at it. That's really the goal. And as long as you're picking small, achievable things and working on those time and time again, you're going to get better. It's just the nature of putting in the work. So that's really the biggest thing is, yeah, you just put in the reps and you listen back to what you do and actively try to get better.
Oh, yeah, that's great. So, how does a podcast like help a business grow?
It does so much for you because the cool thing about a podcast is it's really just a starting point for your message is how I see it. So for example, I work with business coaches, right? Those are some of my clients. So the way they might do it is one of them in particular helps with leadership and making them understand their issues and their problems so they can be better leaders for people in the business. So it's like they'll take personality tests and stuff like that. What you'll want to do is the information that you have, the kinds of things that you advise clients on and the way you solve their problems, you can present that information in a lot of different ways. But the idea is do a podcast because it's one format that you understand. It's natural to speak and it's an easier thing to do on the regular and it can incorporate guests. So do that. And then use that as the means to repurpose your message in all of these other platforms. So you create it once, essentially, because you make the podcast, and then it's, okay, well, now we have clips of that. Let's put that on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts. Let's get the transcript of that, and let's reformat it into a newsletter or a blog post or both. And so by doing all of that, it becomes easier to make all of your other content because you did it through the podcast. The message is good. And now it's just reapplying it to all of the other places. Yeah.
Yeah, we can also use transcription to create a book.
Yeah. 100%. Like a great thing. Something I haven't done yet. And I'm always fascinated by is people who have done that of putting a book together. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree.
Yeah. And can you talk about the problem with interview podcast?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so here's the big problem with it in a lot of times. And this is especially for people who are a business owner and they're doing
Mhm.
it because they want to build their audience and they want to get
Yeah.
clients in the door. So, if that's why you're doing the show, then you want to make sure that you have you featured on the episodes. Like if you're bringing on a, let's say, okay, think about this, right? Business coach. I'll go back to the same kind of business coach I was just talking about. If they have a guest on every single episode, and every
Yeah.
single episode is them just interviewing that guest about who they are and what their business does, I'm never learning anything about the actual host of the show and their actual
Mhm.
business. It doesn't help
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean? So if you're not owning your stage, you've created a stage and given it to other people every single week. So that's not going to help you out. And that's the problem. Is can you build relationships with guests? Yes. But are you actually making good content that markets your business and builds trust with customers? No. So you need to be able to own your own stuff, and that's the problem. So people think, and here's part of the reason why people do that, because what they think is if I'm getting a guest on my show, they're going to bring their audience. And the truth is that is not how it works. Guests tend to not bring the audience, especially people who guest on shows all the time, because
Mhm.
when they're always on shows, people aren't going to follow them to 100 different shows. They're going to just listen to that person's show, you know? So
Yeah.
that so that's the problem is people think I'm going to do an interview show. I'm going to bring on a lot of guests. All of those guests are going to bring their audience to me. And so all I have to do is just keep bringing on guests and my show will get bigger. And it's the complete opposite. So if you want to build an audience, you need to have your own show with your own voice and feature yourself as much as you can and work in guests, but it's got to be based on you and your voice and your ability to build an audience based on who you are. Because if you're relying on guests to bring you people to build your audience, you don't have a strategy to audience build. So that's the problem with it is everybody has it completely backwards when it comes to these interview shows.
Okay, then the host should also do solo podcast, right?
100%. And it doesn't need to be these really long episodes. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
doing 10 minutes, I've done 6-minute episodes for my show because that's all the topic needs. But it's good information. It's something that people should hear. So great. I'll talk for 6 minutes. That's my episode for the week. But now
Mhm.
it is clips. It is a newsletter. It is on YouTube. You know what I mean? So it's like that's the value of it. And now my audience is seeing me posting this kind of information consistently. I'm delivering it. And so they trust me. And when they think about somebody who needs a podcast, they think of me. And
Yeah.
that's the goal. Like you need awareness because people, when you don't provide people with a specific reason to think of you and hit them with it again and again and again and again and again and again and again, then they're not going to think of you, right? Like if they think of you for 8 different things, they don't think of you for anything because you're not a specialist and everybody's a specialist these days.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. Yeah. I want to hit people. I want to do these solo episodes. I want to do that a lot. And I want to have guests, but my main thing is this is my show for my business to build my audience, and that's what the approach has to be.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense there. And can you talk about the podcast strategy?
Yes, strategy's everything, right? When
Mhm.
when you think about this, a lot of times people have struggling shows because they start and podcasting feels disposable in a way. There's so many episodes, there's so many shows fall apart all the time. A lot of shows, literally 47% of shows die after 3 episodes. They just
Mhm.
stop. So
Okay.
people look at podcasting and go, well, it's not a big deal. Let's just wing it. We'll figure it out as we go. Sure, like there's something to be said for getting better as you do it. But if you, especially as a business owner, like you've got only so much time in a day and you're
Mhm.
juggling all of these different responsibilities. You've got to manage your books. You're doing sales. You're trying to get all these posts up. You have to do the actual work for your clients and what they need. Like you have a personal life. So to do all of that and just figure out a show on the go is a total waste of your time. Like you've got to be smart about it. And it doesn't have to be anything too crazy. The basic idea is what does your business need? What are the goals of your business? And how's the podcast helping you do that? So that's how I work with people. And that's the most important part of the entire process. Like just on a basic idea of developing a show is much more expensive as a service that I have than it is to manage an episode day in and day out because it's the entire foundation of everything you do. Once you get it solved and you know what the show is and who it's for and the kinds of topics that you're going to talk about and the kinds of guests that you're going to bring on to the show, then everything is easy. You're essentially just coloring in the book every single time, right? It's connect the dots. But until you develop that strategy, otherwise you're just kind of making content for the sake of it and hoping it blows up. That's not how this works. So yeah, let me give you an example. So I'm working with these guys and they're in real estate. And
Okay.
initially they were doing the show talking to entrepreneurs in the area, which they do some commercial real estate and sure. But the thing is that one, commercial real estate is going down, generally speaking. Less and less people are doing that because they can work from home and they want to have virtual businesses and they save a lot of money that way. And the number of people that are in the market to actually buy that kind of space is small, and it's a one-time sale. Like that audience is not long-lived. If you get somebody and they buy property from you or they rent property through you, that's it. Now you've got to find other people. You're constantly finding new people. What we did is instead we flipped the show and we made it exactly about who they are as real estate agents and what they do overall, not just one facet of their business, which is the commercial side, but all of the work that they do. So in that case, you're talking about real estate development. In some cases, you're talking about home buying for an individual person, fixing and flipping. So like they're in a lot of spaces, and now they talk with people that when they do business, they're doing business with somebody else. So that's a real estate investor. That's somebody in mortgages. That's somebody who manages short-term rentals when they get built. So your Airbnbs and things like that. So that's where we switch the show. And now every time they're doing episodes, they're talking to other people that are professionals in the real estate space, are hearing their opinions about this stuff and want to work with these guys on things that they're doing and know that I'm a mortgage broker. I know somebody who needs to buy a house. I don't do that, but I know these guys and I'm going to send the person over there. So they've been able to focus on where their business really is, which is the strategic partners. And they've been able to build those relationships up and drive more business that way. So that's like a full picture of the kind of approach that I have. And yeah, that's what I do with everybody that I work with.
And yeah, like doesn't matter at what time we publish our podcast, or a host can publish anytime you want.
Yeah, so the main thing with it is, one, be consistent, right? There's so many
Yeah.
people that are posting stuff out there, so you want to get it out all the time and have some kind of regularity to it. Time does matter because you want to hit people at a time that it's convenient to listen, but take chances with it. And what I mean by that is everything in podcasting, as much as I said earlier, like you don't want to figure out everything on the fly, some things you are going to take an educated guess and you're going to see where it goes as you go. So, for example, my show, when we started it, we posted on Wednesday mornings at 6 a.m. with the idea that when people get up on Wednesday's typically a less busy day of the week because Monday you're slammed, you're always worried about stuff. Tuesday, you're still dealing with a lot of things. Wednesday can be pretty chill. So we put our show out on a Wednesday morning, and we've gotten good response with that so far. But if we weren't getting good response as we go and review the show every so often, there's a chance that we would switch days. But we wanted to give it a couple of months. And at this point, it's been 6 months that we've been publishing the show, if not longer, 8 months that we've been publishing the show on Wednesday mornings at 6 a.m. So that's worked. But if it didn't, yeah, we'd change it. So I think there's something to be said for understanding your audience and when they might be listening. And that's why it's so important to know who your audience is, like who the show is truly for. Because if you're going to do a show that's for parents, for example, like if I don't know, there's a lot of shows about mompreneurs, right? Like you're a mother, you're working at home, you want a side hustle, and you're going to build some business around that. Well, you're probably really busy in the morning because you have kids, right? So you've got kids and you're getting them ready and taking them to school and whatever's going on. So maybe that's not the best time to release. I don't know. But like those are the kinds of things to consider because the whole thing is you do want people to listen. And so what's a time that makes it easy for them? And if it doesn't work, yeah, make a change.
And can you tell me a story, a success story you have with any of your clients?
Yeah. So one of the clients that I work with, they are an internal HR support business. So what they do is they help teams be more cohesive and with HR and help with internal communication. So how the company connects with its employees all across the company, the kinds of messaging and team building and things like that. So they did a podcast, and it started because they had done a live show at a conference about 2 years ago, and it went really well. And they said, oh, we should make a podcast on this. So they do the show. And then once they started doing the podcast, what's happened now is we've done 2 seasons of it. So we did 10 episodes, then we took a year off, and then we did another 10. They built a partnership with an event series. And now they're going to be doing live episodes across the country, and they're performing this. It's a slight adaptation of the show, but doing the show is something to help them build the relationship with the event runners. And now they get to showcase their business live in person and run a room of, 50 to 100 plus people. And they get to do that every couple of weeks because they have a relationship with this event series. So when you're thinking about the kind of business that can bring in, I mean, what a beautiful thing, right? Like, you're getting in front of a large group of people in the exact audiences that you want to be in, and you get to be the center of attention and be able to literally follow up in person with those people who will want to talk to you right after the presentation. That's great. So that's a huge win. For the real estate show that I mentioned earlier, one of the great things with them is they partnered up with a real estate investor. So now when they have certain projects, they have an investor that's a part of the show. So they're doing business together, and they're running events together as well. So now they're doing it in other investor events where they can get people who are real estate developers and things together. And as real estate agents and investors, now they're doing some high level deals. But the show created the space to build that relationship between the agent and the investing company. And from there, they're getting this regular content out and inviting people onto the show strategically that could be a fit for these meetings. And you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
you can see how they use it in this really dynamic way that's way beyond downloads. Downloads don't really matter because they're building the right relationships with the right people. And as long as the content is good and they're constantly hitting those right people, the numbers will go up and continue to go up. But it's a slower game, but it's all about that big sale rather than big numbers and sponsorship dollars.
Okay. And can you tell me like what are some of the habits that successful and really great hosts have?
Yeah, so major habit is just preparation. And when that comes down to it, it's figuring out before you get into an interview, what are the things that you want to ask this person? Like on a personal, curious level, and on some level, be selfish. Say, here's what I find interesting about this person. And knowing my audience, what do I think they want to hear about this person? And so when you're putting in that kind of work, and for me, for example, if I'm going to have a guest on my show, I will probably look at their website, look at their LinkedIn, look at their social media channels around that. I might listen to their podcast if they have one and really get a feel for who they are and what they're about and what are some of the things that they believe, because I want to fully understand what they're about. And like I said at the very beginning of this, where you can be so specific in the topics, it sets you up to be so specific with the kinds of things that person provides as an expert. And that's what really makes you stand out, is putting in that work to say, okay, I have all of these questions. I know why I want to ask them. I know how they all connect. So if I've got 5 questions that are in a certain area, right? So just for us, right? Like, hey, here's 5 different things about hosting. Here's some things I have about building a podcast for a business. Here's some stuff that I might want to talk about with podcast strategy. Like when you lay all those things out, it's good because it's a natural flow. You have all the reason behind it that you want to do it. Like it. So that's the idea of it is, yeah, it's really planning number 1 through 5. Like just put a lot of time into what the show is and what that episode is going to be. And then the other side of it is listening. You want to be, during the conversation, you want to pick up on things that people are saying and even at times interrupt them. Because if it turns out they say something that's really major
Okay.
and that blows your mind, be like, whoa, actually, sorry to interrupt you, but that was so interesting. You know what I mean? Like, so can you give me more information on that thing? I don't want to lose that nugget of
Okay.
information because I think it's
Sorry
so
to
important.
interrupt you.
There we go.
Okay, I read somewhere that don't research on the guest, because when you research, then you will know so much about him that you will not actually be curious to ask question because you know so many things. So, what's your thought on that?
Oh yeah, I think it's completely wrong. I would ditch that entire. I'm the complete opposite. I would say know a lot about your guest,
Okay.
and it's from the idea of I want specific information, right? I want to be in a very narrow space. So the idea is not only do I research my guests, but I pre-interview people before I bring them on the show. So what'll
Okay.
happen is I will match with them on a certain platform, or I'll just give them an invitation to come on. We do 10 minutes. Just literally a 10-minute call where we
Yeah.
talk about, so I've noticed this and that, and can you explain this for me, and what's your thought here? And without fully getting into it, it gives me a deeper understanding of, I have some ideas of what I think the show could be, with them, and having that conversation helps me either understand the topic even more and their approach to it even more. It can make me say, okay, I thought this was going to be an interesting angle, but it's not. And so I'm saving time on the show and I'm creating a better product because I'm essentially doing the show before the show, and I have more confidence in what these topics are going to be, the kinds of answers I'm going to get, and the exact value that it's going to provide my audience. So I love the research. And the problem is that when you don't do that, you're now taking a stab at different things in the recording in that limited time and your listener's limited time. So I don't want to have my listener go through the process of, so you said this thing, what is it? And maybe it turns out that I don't even agree with that philosophy. I think it's wrong. Like, I don't know. There's times where I'll look at certain opinions like marketing people and I don't agree with it. So I don't want to talk about that unless I want to confront them about it, which I really don't want to do, you know? So it's being very strategic in that way. But the more specific that you can be, I think it allows for a more enlightened conversation. And that's, again, like people won't get that anywhere else because you've done that work and you are diving so deep and you're doing it in one specific place. And on the other side too, here's the thing that I like about it. The more specific you get, the more unique that conversation is to the guest. And the more that they'll tend to lock in as well, because they'll go, oh, I never talk about this on shows. People are always asking me about my background and how I got started and some overline base view stuff. But when you get into the weeds with somebody, that's their thing. You know what I mean? Like, they're all about that. They dedicate their lives to that. So now, by being so specific and doing that pre-interview and really being curious about them, you're going to unlock something, and they're absolutely going to appreciate that and give you a better conversation.
Okay, can you tell me what are the 5 things that a host can do that is very bad for the episode?
Oof. Okay. So yeah, number 1 is not prepare.
Okay.
Number 2 is not really listen to the guest and just ask questions, but have like a pre-written list and they're not really engaging. You want to think about things like, I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff. Monotone. You just want to think about energy, right? Like, you want to engage people in the way that you speak. So that's not just for the guest as you're talking to them, but it's also, you have an audience. You want to, as much as it's at times informational, you want to entertain people. So you need to be compelling when you speak. So if you're not putting energy into it and you're not excited for that episode and you're not bringing it, you're completely wasting your time. Distractions during the episode, like, don't have your phone open. Don't get too deep in your emails. And I've done that occasionally. Like, you get so distracted with stuff where it's like, oh, I just got a new email. Let me click that open real quick. And those kinds of things, that's the stuff that's really important. It's a main reason why you do it. It's your marketing. You want to promote your business. So if you're not doing those calls to action to really promote that, then you've missed something, and that's going to hurt you.
Okay, so can you tell me what make an episode really, really great from good one?
So a lot of it, like I said,
okay, one sec. Apart from questions and apart from energy.
Yeah, so I think part of it is the uniqueness of it, right? Because again, it's, if people can listen to your show and let me take it back for a second. Okay. Sometimes I will put on music and I'll put something on in the car. I've got Spotify, I've got Apple, whatever. I'm listening to something and I won't be able to describe it, but a song will come on and I'll instantly hit next. People get that way with podcasts. They can't explain it, but they know that it's not interesting and they want to flip. So you have to be so relentlessly good at getting people's attention that they can't explain it, but they know you're better than everybody else. And that's the goal, right? You need to be so compelling that people feel like it's worth their limited time in an increasingly busy world. And that is things like you're getting right to the point right up top, right? So when I open my episodes, I don't even have intro music right now on my show. We literally get started.
That's what I was thinking about. So,
Yeah.
should I cut the intro music?
Yeah, I actually ditched it. I have a lot of clients that have intro music, but I'm really thinking about telling them to not do it. So it's something I'm considering on a deeper level, but I decided to test it out with my show. So as soon as I start the episode, it's, hey, you've got this problem. Let's talk about what that problem is, and we're going to get into it today. And here's all the different things that I'm going to do to help you solve that problem, and here's how I do it myself. So that's like bang, you know, people know what they're getting. They have a reason to stick around. Everything they saw in the title and description of the episode is verified by what you said up front. I give them that standard intro as if they've never listened before. and because most people haven't, and then from there I just deliver on what I promised. But that's a lot of it. Deliver on what you promise, and give people a reason to tune in and stick around, because it's one of the biggest challenges. Retention is just as big as getting people to download. So if they don't think you're interesting up top, you feel like you're wasting your time because you play music for 30 seconds before you first speak, people are going to leave. They're not there for a song. That's not what they're there for.
And like most of the audience are online coaches and consultants, and they want to build their email list. And I also want to do the same thing. So how can a podcast help with that?
So one of the biggest ways to do that, and this is something that I'm working on myself because I've been thinking about these things with the call to action and how to tie all of this together, do it in the middle of the episode. When you can get these opportunities in the middle of the show, because a lot of times the listener rate, if you get like 70% for people listening, that's good. Like that's better than average. So most of the time people will not listen to a full episode of your show, which means that if your call to action is the newsletter, then you should do it when people are listening, right?
Yeah.
And you should save that other call to action, which I'm doing in the middle as I update the show. And it's not even live yet. So as I'm saying this, like I'm literally not even doing this yet myself, but I'm planning to. So it'll be, I'm going to promote the newsletter in the middle of the show. And then when I get to the end of the show, that's when I'm going to promote a call. So it's one call to action at one specific time, but overall, it's 2 call to actions throughout the course of the show. So in 20 minutes, that might be in the first 10 minutes, about 10 minutes in, I'll tell them to subscribe to the newsletter and give them a reason to do that. And then on the back end of it, it's, hey, you've listened to me for 20 minutes. You must be really engaged with what this topic is and think it's interesting. So how can I help you? Let's take this further. Go and schedule a call. And that's the approach.
That was really good. Okay, so is there anything else that you'd like to share?
So let me think here. I mean, yeah, the biggest thing is I just want to hammer it home because people get so lost in it all the time. But yeah, build your show around what your business is, the kinds of problems you solve, the direct people that need the solution to what you do, and do that relentlessly, because you think so much about big audiences and big numbers, and that's not what any of this is. Like, I didn't start a podcast production company and expect millions of people to care about my business. They won't. Like, I work with business owners that have a podcast. That's a very small lane. So I don't care about raw volume. I care about being well known in the space and dominating it. And that's all it is. So for my kind of client, I need to be so present for them. They need to trust me because they see me delivering value again and again and again. And everything that I'm doing with my show, with the things that I post, it's all dedicated to their problems that my company solves. And as much as you can really drill all of that down, it's going to feel weird to let go, to say no to guests, to limit your topics. But instead of being so wide, because you cover so many different areas for so many people, the depth that you're going to get to is going to make you stand out. And you just have to trust that over time it's going to come together because you're talking to the right people constantly. So believe in that, believe in your business, the problems you solve, and go after it. The model of, hey, I'm going to get tens of thousands of downloads and get sponsors and monetize the show, it's just not the way to do it for a business owner, and you shouldn't think that way.
What do you think? What are the few of the things that are holding a host back?
I think a lot of times it's just on some level, it's attachment to the thing that they've been doing. I mean, I'm working with somebody right now. I have a coaching client who we are rebranding her show. And that's because she's been having guests on every single episode. It's not connected to her business. And she's been doing it for like 3 years. So it's hard to say that this hasn't been working and I need to make a change. But it's the truth. And so while it's taken a couple of weeks to get to that point where we're ready to fully move on, move past the discussion of this show as it's been, and instead really look ahead of what the show is going to be, that was a hard thing to overcome. She's been very attached to the show over the years, and I get it. You put in the work, you promote the thing, but when you're not getting the downloads, when you're not driving business, and it's just not going anywhere, then at some point you have to admit that it's not working and take that as an opportunity to grow. It's not like you're killing the thing that you've done before as much as you're evolving it and making better use of your time. So yeah, I think people get attached to the idea of the show and lose sight of the reason why the show exists. And that's the biggest issue.
Okay. Suppose the host want to build a very good relationship with a guest, okay, and so that they could work as a joint venture in the future. So that episode should be different than any other episodes, or it should be like same.
Yeah, so it depends on the person that you want to bring on. For example, right? So for me, podcast producer working with businesses, I might get to a point where I want to bring on somebody who does advertising, or
Yeah.
that so they advertise like they and I one of two different ways, and these would be two different episodes. One is getting your podcast and advertising people, advertising your show in other places to get more people to listen to the show. So that's one thing. The other idea with advertising being getting sponsors on the show once you actually have an audience and doing that, which again is not the goal, but hey, if you've built naturally 3,000 people that listen to your show, you can monetize that. So like that's a thing. But for me to bring those people on, let's say advertising my podcast, right? Just to keep it in one spot. So this person is an expert that can advertise podcasts and grow the audience that way. Then that is a specific show. And it's how am I presenting my show to get people to listen to it in an advertisement? What does that look like? What platforms do I advertise on? Am I doing that in a newsletter? Am I doing that on podcasts? Am I doing that on Meta Business Suite? All of those things might be different episodes in themselves. Just talking about advertising a podcast on Meta Business Suite, an expert should be able to talk about that for 30 minutes, no problem. To talk about doing that in a newsletter is probably a 30-minute conversation easily, right? What kind of newsletters are you picking? How do you go about that process? How much money are you going to invest in those newsletters? What makes a good investment there? What is the call to action? What kind of link do you use when you place those ads to make sure that you're catching as many people as possible? Because I might not want to advertise with just the Apple link because 30% of the audience listens on Spotify. So now I've lost people because I'm sending them to Apple and they don't listen there. So you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things to talk about, but ultimately what it comes down to is I have a very specific thing that I do. I'm bringing on an expert that complements that business and doesn't overlap and compete with that business. I'm talking to them about the thing that they're passionate about, and I'm providing my expertise in that conversation as much as I can to build the relationship and also show that I know what the hell I'm talking about. So by being able to show to them, hey, I know what I'm doing and I have all these opinions and I have good questions because I've thought about this and I care about it, that connects with them and they get that I am an expert, I'm obsessed with this, and I want the best for my clients too. So by being, again, like going back, I'm fully prepared. I'm fully engaged in this conversation. I know exactly what I want to ask this person. I know exactly how it benefits my audience. And that very specific conversation is going to get them to trust me and get the audience to trust me further. That's the relationship that I'm looking to build. And from there, it just comes down to maintaining the relationship because they might not be ready for me. I might not be ready for them. My clients might not be on a level that's ready for them with the service that they provide. And so it might take time. But maintaining a relationship is just as important as building one. So I always try to make sure that once I have a guest on, if it turns out it was as good as I thought, and I do trust them in a way that I think, and I would want to work with them, I'm maintaining that connection. And so I'm following them on LinkedIn. I'm liking their posts. I'm commenting on stuff. I'm checking in on them. Like I'm doing those things because it's a good thing. And I know that there can be benefits for everybody when it's time.
Okay. Have you ever converted a podcast, I mean, an interview into a high ticket product? Have you ever done
So
that?
no, I haven't converted it into a product in itself. I mean, for me, the way I'm always working on it is I'm bringing people in to manage their shows, right? So for me to get somebody to come in and
Okay.
become a podcast client, that is my high ticket. I'm producing episodes every single week. There's different levels of management with that where I can just have an editor, like they send us the files and we edit it, and I check in as a coach every couple of weeks. Other times I'm a full executive producer for the show and like actively manage everything and working on the topics with them. So that's my high ticket is like, I am a partner with you on your show. I am building that thing with you. I'm giving you strategic advice for everything that we're doing. I'm helping to shape your topics and prepare the show. I'm reviewing shows when you've done them to talk about how well it was executed and how we can do better going forward. I'm talking about how it's promoted. So that's how I do my high ticket. And ideally I just manage a few shows to that high level, and that's what makes me happy. Like I'm not trying to scale to, managing 5,000 podcasts and whatever. I'm white glove, I'm boutique. I want to be hands-on. My expertise is part of what drives this business, and I love doing the work. So for me, that makes me happy. That's how I've built this business. That's how my whole strategy's built, and that's what I sell.
Don't you think there is a cap for that?
Yeah, there is a cap for sure. And I'm okay with that. I mean, for me, like coming up in radio, right? I came. The problem with radio was all these corporate people wanted to find ways to continuously increase the profit margin of the radio station. But at some point, you're a local market. You have so many people that are in the market and listen to the station. And that's mostly it. I mean, there's things around the margins that you can do to improve what the company makes. But to some degree, there's sort of a fixed price of how much radio time you can sell. You have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. That's a set amount of inventory. So you can get better ratings and slightly increase your price. But ultimately, the labor's the labor. You need to pay so many different people on staff to make the station run. Like there's limits. And all of these people that ran the station wanted higher margin consistently. But the only way they could really do that was by cutting people. So they were artificially creating this increase in earnings because they were cutting people out of the business and just piling more work onto less and less people, which made the product worse. You know what I mean? And now
Yeah,
people have
yeah.
gone to other places. So they cannibalized their own business because they didn't appreciate that there's only so much money that a radio station will realistically make within a range in a given year. And for me, I'm okay with being a business that doesn't have scaling. I'm not overseeing thousands of shows because for me, one, I don't want to board. I don't want to answer to other people. I want to live my life. I want to be in control of my business. I don't want to answer to anybody. So that's a choice that I made, and I know there will be cost to that. Of I can't scale a business to multiple millions of dollars and have stocks, and you know what I mean. Like that's not, but that's not what I want. I want to be able to say, hey, I'm done work at 5 o'clock. That's it. You don't talk to me after that. These are my rules. I will give you everything I've got between 9 to 5, but I control my nights. I control my weekends. I control how much money is coming in the door. I control what kinds of clients that I work with. And that's what I care about. And that's what my business partner cares about. And having that shared vision is why we work. Because if he wanted to scale or I wanted to scale, and we wouldn't be on the same page. We'd want different things and be a whole different approach.
Okay, can you tell me who do you don't take as a client?
So first off, people that don't truly get what a podcast is and how to do it. Right. So if they don't fully understand what podcasting is, I'm worried that they're not going to truly give the investment the proper time. Because when you do a podcast, it takes time. You're not going to get big numbers overnight, especially if you don't have a big audience. And that's why I tell people it's not about downloads when you start the show. If you don't have a big audience, the whole idea is you want to increase your visibility and build good relationships. So you want to have this content, you want to get it out regularly, you want to get the clips on social media, you want to have a newsletter, like you want to do all of that stuff because now people are thinking about you, you're engaging with them constantly, you're sharing what you're about, and you bring them in as a customer over time. That's what I do. But if you're expecting to go viral right off the bat with no audience, we're not working together because we have a completely different vision for how to do this. And frankly, I don't think I would be able to deliver you those results because it's not realistic. Unless you have a massive budget to pay for advertising and all those things, which the people I work with do not, then it's not going to work. So that's part of it. I want people that I'd like to work with, honestly. People
And
that,
who
that
are
just
they?
I want a good relationship. I don't need somebody that's yelling and screaming and doesn't appreciate me and my expertise and what I'm bringing to the table. Like when I work with somebody, I'm working in their best interest. I'm doing everything that I can to make their business run. I want to give them honest input. I want to put them in the best position. Because for me, to just take people's money and do work that I don't believe in and then have them inevitably leave is not useful to me, and it's not useful to them, and it's going to hurt both of us in the long run. So I would rather go all in and build a good relationship with somebody that I trust and that trusts me, and we can build something together with a shared vision. So that's huge, is that we're on the same page spiritually and with what the goals are and how this is going to grow. And then other times, yeah, I mean, it's beyond that, it's pretty flexible. I mean, there's a lot of industries that this applies to. There's a lot of people that for the size of the business, I can start by coaching you. So, hey, I can check in once a month. I could check in every week. You know what I mean? Like there's different ways that I can help out from a distance if you don't have a lot of budget to work with. And I can help you grow over time. And the more you need me, the more you'll come back. And that's all well and good. But I'm happy to invest in people that are in an early stage and a small budget. It's just there's a limit to that. And then otherwise it grows. So yeah, like I try to be very flexible. And again, the only other limitation is I'm working with businesses. If it's purely an entertainment show and you have no budget whatsoever, then like you're not going to be able to afford me. And I know that. And so like, let's just save both of ourselves the time and come back to me if if it turns out you have sponsors and you've built that audience and you know what I mean? Like then there's something to talk about. But until that happens, it's just a waste of everybody's time. So I only work with businesses.
Okay. Can you tell me if someone want to hire you, where can they reach out?
So if you want to hire me, go to freepodcasthelp.com. Best URL I ever bought. It was available for like $20. Freepodcasthelp.com. And what I do with that is I give anybody that signs up for that, it's a free 30-minute call, and it's like a real strategy session. So we sit down. I have a questionnaire that I send them before we do the call, and it's tell me about your podcast, what your goals are. I have a whole quiz for existing shows to understand what their production process is and how they approach monetizing and all these other things. So when we get into it, it's not just like get to know you. It's here's what I know about you, right? And here's what I think your problems are. And let's dig into these things and let's solve something for you right here and right now. And if it turns out that's all the conversation is, that's fine with me. Like I helped you, you got somewhere. And if you want to come back and work with me, you can. But at the very least, I'm happy to give people that really want the help a free 30 minutes. So freepodcasthelp.com, and that's where you go and book the call.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so it was nice talking with you, Vince. Okay, Vince, as a case study, can you tell me what can I do as a host to make an episode good?
Yeah, so you personally, right? In this case? Okay, I like this, first off. I like you putting yourself out there. Let me ask you this. I'm going to return your question with a question. From the last however long that we've been speaking now, what are some of the things that have hit you the most of, oh, I should do this thing, or, oh, I have not been doing this thing?
Okay, first one is I was like, no research, otherwise I will know everything. Then what would I listen? Because I already know everything.
Yeah.
So that was the first problem.
Okay.
And the second one is I have to cut the intro because that was 1 minute intro for my episode. So that was the second thing. And what else?
Yeah, I mean, and those sound good to me. I mean, yeah, just being fully transparent, right? Because I appreciate this. I could tell, certain times you're looking for those questions to ask, and then you're looking over at a sheet to be like, oh, okay, let me get some other stuff. When you do that prep work, you'll have those things in mind, and it's going to be a flow thing where there's times where, like, as you're talking to a guest, to take a look at your sheet and go like, okay, I don't necessarily have something that's a natural follow-up. And that happens, right? Sometimes they talk about something and that's just kind of the end of the line for that part of the conversation. Yeah. No problem. But being able to say, okay, well, here's some other questions that I have, and being faster with that, okay, this thing is done, so let's immediately move into this next thing. So you have those times where you're like, well, okay, that was great. Okay, so you know what I mean? And like, you definitely can skip those out. I know you can, but that's the biggest thing. And it'll come with that prep work. Like you'll have all these different questions that you want to talk about. And when you know the material on a deeper level, like, yeah, that's going to be so much easier. It'll naturally solve itself, really. So I don't even know if I needed to mention that, but like it's something that stood out on the surface, and I think it'll be easy to clean up.
Okay, anything else?
I mean, to start, that's it. I would say just go do those things and see where it takes you. Because the preparation, like, you're going to experience interviews in a whole different way. It's going to be entirely, like, the whole feel of it's going to be different. Your energy going in, because now you, like, it's a whole, you didn't know it before, right? Like, what's it like when you see a movie for the second time or the fifth time? It's different. You know what's coming up. You have an idea of where things are, and that's what it's going to be. But that kind of mastery, in a sense, like that deeper understanding of the person, it's just going to give you such better conversations. So the places you're going to go is going to be fascinating. And just start there. Just put your time into that. And then, you figure out the next thing from there.
Okay. Thank you, Vincent. That was very good.
Thanks for having me.